You're listening to the Institute of Commissioning and Assurance, where commissioning isn't a phase, it's project leadership. Unlock the systems-based approach that is reshaping delivery of today's most complex infrastructure projects, from energy systems to industrial processes to transport systems, plus much more. Say no to project failure and say yes to value creation, accountability, and successful project outcomes. Here's your host, Paul Turner.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. We've got a fascinating group of companies from all over the world in several industries to share some very valuable and useful information on readiness, commissioning, outcome assurance, and we'll even touch on some of the AI trends that we're seeing in the industry at the end here as well. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Let's start with yourself, David. David is the chair of our technical committees, is organizing our worldwide organization and collaboration of some of our technical experts all over the world. Hi, David. How are you today?
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon for you guys all over the world. Thank you so much, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited as the chairman of the technical committees. I'm really pleased to be here in this second edition of the second ICxA Global Knowledge Roundtable, especially after seeing the great positive feedback we had from the previous one from all over the world, right? So just a reminder, the knowledge roundtables are very significant initiatives for us. And they are key mandate of the technical committees, right? The main objective of us is just to help advance the profession of commissioning, outcome assurance, and operational readiness across the world, by cross-pollinating all this knowledge that exists segmented all over the world and experiences from all geographies, industries, and disciplines, right? So that's the most important thing, because that's how knowledge is created, right? So from all these initiatives, step by step. With this, the main objective is just to, besides helping individuals and organizations to deliver and sustain, most important, to sustain value with best practices, I see these initiatives as catalysts of the natural evolution of the execution of global ecosystems as technology advances, right? So, as you mentioned today, we have a great panel. I have the privilege to have with 4 world-class professionals as panelists for our discussion. And I'm going to introduce them. So, Mauricio Nitervich, he's a partner at Deloitte. He's joining us from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Glenys Rule, she's an operations commissioning manager at Water Care Services. She's joining us from Auckland, New Zealand. Enrique Cardona, he's a principal engineer at H2O Innovation. He's joining us from Pompano Beach, US. And Marco Vicentivec, he's a director at ForQuest Energy. He's joining us from Abu Dhabi, UAE. So welcome all, and happy to have you here, and I hope you guys enjoy the discussion.
Thanks, David.
No, of course, my pleasure. Without more preamble, the first question. So, how can organizations develop commissioning-driven execution strategies early in the project lifecycle, ensuring that commissioning evolves beyond this technical verification or testing into a capability-building mechanism that shapes operational performance from the outset? Let's start with you, Marco.
Sure. Thanks, David. So I always say that the best time to address a potential commissioning issue is well before you start pouring the concrete for the foundations. Now, that might be a bit of an over-exaggeration, but my point is that the earlier that you can start working on at least the commissioning philosophies and the overarching commissioning strategy, the better. So really, it should start during the feed stage, and then as the project grows through detailed engineering, procurement, construction, you can kind of hone in and get specific with respect to the procedures, specifications, documentation, processes as you go on. And what this allows you to do is to really work backwards from the startup plan or the startup execution plan. You can then work backwards and prioritize and do your systemization and construction priority based on that, not just based on, installing inch meters of pipe and measuring your progress in that way. And I kind of like the reframe in the question of commissioning not just being technical verification, because it's not just technical verification. It's really where the operations team gets their first introduction. It's where they get to meet the facility or the project or the asset. And so they should be part of that early as well. So early during the detailed engineering, you should have operations representation as part of those design reviews, HAZOPs, operability studies, model reviews. And I think the other way to get this going early is to incentivize it and adjust the metrics accordingly. So as you're going through the early stages of the project, making it not just about, construction completion, inch meters of pipe installed, tons of concrete poured, but system completion, punch list burn down. I think that's how you can really make it commissioning driven throughout the project execution phase.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marco. Great insights for sure. Glennis, what do you think about this? You're in mute, Glennis.
Okay, I really want to know who in their career hasn't walked late into a project to start commissioning and the budget and the schedule are already spent, the assets are built and they look great, but they're not the standard and they don't do what the ops team want. And the thing you need to start with hasn't been built yet. And it takes you months in a conflict zone just to get the software to talk to the valves and reduce the number of alarms to something we can live with. So I guess, as Marco said, let's flip up the order of things. We don't let the construction drive the schedule. They use the startup sequence to drive the schedule. We move past basic checklists. It's not about checking that a pump works. We look to optimize that. We tune the control loops. We rationalize the alarms. We stress test the system for abnormal conditions. And then we become part of the asset lifestyle. So the project leaves behind good quality asset data, including baseline performance. It's not just a pile of disorganized paperwork. We use commissioning as a classroom. So we identify the training gaps early in the process, and then during our dynamic commissioning, the operators can work directly with our commissioning experts and engineers, and this hands-on co-commissioning speeds up the operational learning for the new plant.
Excellent. No, thank you. Definitely, it's a progressing incremental effort needs to occur. You don't have to wait until the last minute, which is pretty much one of the key mistakes that all projects do. Enrique, from your side.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So basically, organizations should treat commissioning, operational readiness, and outcome assurance as a single or unified management system, not a hands-off milestone. So that model effectively, you have it starts early, embed readiness on design and delivery, so you assures the outcome. So commissioning-driven strategy should not start with the mechanical completion as many people understand it. So because you want to define in early stage the system boundaries, completion criteria, and turnover packages. So that will give you the capability to understand and to define the role responsibility for each one during each of the phases and how the system will be delivered or turn over to the commissioning team. So saying that, we have to have a very good commissioning plan that it will include FAT, pre-commissioning, commissioning, startup, wrap-up, performance, trial period. So it explicitly links each of the phases, what is the outcome expected of each of them, and what is this will be engaging in the life cycle of the project, meaning that if you follow all these steps on the early stage during the design, you will sure will be mitigating any of the delays that many people find during the startup.
Well, thank you so much. Especially delays and troubles that are handed over after to operations, right? So these delays and all these unknowns, right? So Mauricio,
Correct.
what are your perspective from this point?
Yeah, it's difficult now with these very good contributions, but I can see that the projects nowadays are engineering driven. What I mean that I do the engineering, I procure what I can, and I construct what I have in the field. And commissioning is always very difficult because we don't have the best order. Okay, so we need to change this mindset and really doing commissioning driven, a system driven projects. Okay, and we need to do it in the very beginning, in the front end loading phase. Okay, so we need to think in the precedence network. We need to do our commissioning plan. We need to develop our operational readiness plan, and of course we need to check all these plans, all these network and schedule, okay, in the gates. So in the mainly in the final investment decision, to check if everything is in the process is together, think it in the commissioning driven way, and every bar in the process is in the same page to do a commissioning driven process. It's a change of mindset. So this is very important, and it's very important we start in the very beginning, David.
One of the keys is really important to reemphasize that, Mauricio, because it's a lot. It's about not only the alignment, but more importantly, the changing the mindset. Right? So this changing the mindset is what's actually what makes difficult, because everybody is used to the traditional way to execute projects. Scope, schedule, value, quality, and that's it, right? So it's just it's more than that. It's just delivering value. Is Goes back to our first roundtable, which is ready to start up is not ready to operate. Right? So essentially, you can be pushing the buttons and beautiful smoke around, and that doesn't do anything for 3 days later the plan has an unexpected shutdown. Right? So for that, no, thank you so much, Paul. I'm gonna turn it over to you for the next second question.
Yeah, two interesting points I heard there from Glennis, that commissioning as the classroom. I really like that phrase. I think that's definitely true, right? It can be an abrupt change from the project environment to the operational environment, and the more we have the folks involved there to support that soft transition, commissioning as a classroom is a perfect term for that. Mauricio's comment also on a systems-based approach. The only way that you'll deliver a system is when you govern the project as a system, right? That systems-based approach upfront is fundamental. So I appreciate those answers. Thanks. All right, so next question is, how should engineering, construction, commissioning, operational readiness, and operations be unified to build operational readiness capability for the project and for the organization? Let's start with yourself, Enrique.
Sorry, guys, I wasn't mute. So, for engineering perspective, construction, commissioning, operation readiness should be operated at a single or unified integrated execution framework with shared milestones, integrated schedules, a single version of readiness. So in practice, operation readiness is managed as a second order capability. So the organization is not only ready for startup, but also capable of repeatedly preparing assets, people, process, and support of the system safe as a reliable operation. So you have to have an integrated governance body to authorize how this process change from phase to phase, how design change, readiness, startup criteria. So you have to define all these steps in a common sense outcome. And common sense, I mean what is expected. So what is the best approach to achieve it? So as a single stage gates, this gates links the design completion, construction completion, commissioning, and training, because that's way you follow this. As I said before, you follow this this management approach in order to get this unified framework. Because when you do the design, you started in the design phase, you catch early stage what is the possible outcomes, and also you also set you also can identify the risk associated to it. Let's say if in the team you don't have any else that is looking forward to a possible risk that can jeopardize the production or execution of the work, you can do as a design early phase.
That management approach is fundamental, exactly like you say. When the management approach is only focused on scope, schedule, budget, well, then you can't be surprised that's what you get at the end, right? But with a management approach, you change that mindset and have a systems-based approach, then you'll be able to deliver systems at the end.
Correct.
It makes complete sense. All right, let's move to yourself, Marco. What are your thoughts on this question?
Thanks, Paul. So I think that the integration problem is due to the fact that all of these things tend to be siloed, right? So engineering is its own silo, procurement, construction, commissioning, operational readiness, operations. And generally within the silos, you don't really run into productivity or value leak kind of issues. When you're in the middle of the engineering, when you're in the middle of the construction, it's all fine. It's at the seams. It's where they integrate, where you switch from one to the next. And I think this is where operational readiness comes in, because operational readiness, it's not a checklist of things to tick off before ready to go to the next phase. It's really about risk management for me. It's about identifying the gaps that exist from the current stage to the next one, whether it's commissioning to operations or construction to commissioning, and putting in place mitigation steps to manage the risk and to close the gaps. And I think one of the best ways to do that is these integrated steering committees where you have process, engineering, design, commissioning, operational readiness, operations, all working towards a single set of KPIs. And this also helps you with change management, because anytime there's a change, you have to address usually the majority, if not all, of these different kind of siloed departments anyway. So if you have that integrated steering committee, you can often manage change a lot more effectively and efficiently. And change management, in my experience, is one of the things that tends to slow projects down the most.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, absolutely. An integrated approach, and that management approach right from the beginning to holistically look at everything. You can't throw a bunch of groups out onto a project and expect them to figure out the silos. You need that strong governance up front to make sure that everyone's working towards the same set of KPIs. So I like that answer for sure. All right, Mauricio, let's get your thoughts on this particular question.
Yeah. Perfect. So it's a problem around the world, this one, the integration of the disciplines. So because that, the CII, Construction Industry Institute, developed a framework that is Advanced Work Package Framework. This framework really thinks in the commissioning-driven or construction-driven projects. So we define the systems work package. Okay, so we pull the construction, pull the procurement, and pull the engineering. So we do a backward planning here in the very beginning of the project, since in the front-end load 2 and the detailing in front-end load 3. Okay, so with this, in the very beginning, we think in the path of construction, the POC. Okay, so this is our with our present network. We see how we will construct the systems. Okay, so we define the order of engineering and the procurement to really deliver what the construction and the commissioning need at the time that these disciplines really need in the project. So it's very important in a very robust framework that I indicate for everyone to search and learn a little more about it. And the second point is in the very beginning, with the path of construction, define of precedent network, we involve the operations and the maintenance to give their advice in the beginning of the project.
I appreciate that for sure, right? It's that start with the end in mind mindset where everything's integrated through engineering, construction, commissioning, and the right things are happening in the right sequence to help the next group succeed as well. Definitely makes sense. How about yourself, Glennis? What are your thoughts on this particular question?
I actually think it's really tricky because these functions all love to live in their own silos. If you think of other high-performing teams, professional Formula One mechanics, tyre changers, drivers, they all train together in one unit. Sports teams, players, coaches, physios, managers all work together for the same goal and they train together. But we let our engineers design the construction, assemble it, and then we throw the keys to the ops team all too often. That's never even sat in the driver's seat and then wonder why it doesn't work. So maybe we should be getting in the room early, agreeing a commissioning strategy. We've talked before earlier in the podcast, driving roles and responsibilities, documenting it into a plan early, bringing ops and commissioning into the design phase. It's much cheaper to fix operational issues on a screen, but finding that same issue during hot commissioning can be really costly. Defining what construction success really looks like. It's no longer good enough to hit milestones or just pour concrete. Instead, construction teams must build for commissioning. That means sequencing the completions based on systems functionality, not what's convenient for the build crew. I think that's come up in this podcast a bit. And then embed operations into delivery so the operations team isn't just handed a set of keys and manuals at the end. They need to be with the commissioning team as much as possible, testing assets, mapping alarms, running simulations, and handover may have a much less risk of being a high-stress negotiation and instead maybe become a transition.
Now, there's a lot of great expert advice in that answer for sure that can save projects a significant amount of time and money. So appreciate your insight, Glennis. All right, David, over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. No? Tremendous insights, and I'm hearing constantly one of the key emergent themes in this, which is the integration, risk management, and that's why actually it builds to this third question particularly. What I like is the capability based model that the ICxA is spearheading across the world. And it's essentially that, right? So this mindset that Mauricio mentioned, this integration that Marco as well mentioned, Glenn is with the commissioning, classroom and so on, right? So and the full transition, as Enrique mentioned as well. Particularly, this question deals about the governance and the models, right? So the question is, what governance models, organizational structure, cultural elements, which is really important about mindset, and decision-making process are required for organizations to evolve from delivering projects to assuring sustained operational outcome and value realization, as I mentioned before, as a third order capability. Mauricio, let's start with you.
Perfect. My point here starts in really the organization, okay? Because a lot of times I see organization with the difference of incentives, okay? So we have an incentive for procurement to saving money, not the project result. The construction needs to construct at the time, at the budget. The engineering needs to see and develop the best solutions. But these incentives are not aligned in the project outcome. So the organization really needs to develop incentives, a bonus for executives and for the teams, align with the project outcomes. And the project outcomes in the first year of operation, for example, and the delivery that this project really delivered to the company. So when we align these incentives and everybody thinks in the same way to deliver outcomes, to deliver the value to the client, we really have a change of mindset. Everybody is thinking the same thing and aligning at the same objective. So this is the first think that our organization needs to do to change the culture and to put every bar in the same page. Okay.
Absolutely, no. That's essentially that. You're absolutely right. This the incentives, right? So it's key because that's going to be driving the mindset and how this incentive look like. Monetary thing. And it is a changing culture, right? So, how about you, Glenis?
I think in a similar strain, it all starts with a noisy, unapologetic buy-in from the very top. So if executives can't stick to the game plan, people will cut corners to save time and money. And it's when we need realistic budgets and schedules, and it's got to be more important than exerting pressure to produce artificial upfront targets. So traditionally, we'll get gate reviews asking, is the pump installed and operating? So we need to ask the right questions now. Modern gates, is the team trained? Is the software validated? Can we operate this safely? Our contracts need to be aligned. We need to shift towards commercial frameworks to incentivize long-term asset performance so that success isn't just a signed off construction certificate. It must be a demonstrated stable process that's operating well. Using data to demonstrate that the asset achieves its actual design intent, like specific energy targets, chemical optimization, strict water quality compliance. That's got to be more important than just putting concrete on the ground. And we've got to shift from a culture of, it's not my problem because I've handed it over and I'm out of here and on to the next project, to everyone owns the outcome and everyone on the project, from the designer to the builder, feels a shared responsibility for how that plant runs 2 years down the road.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Glenis. Enrique.
Yeah, that is pretty tricky question, because it means that it's not structural; it's more cultural things. So, moving project from assuring outcomes means that the organization has to judge not only substantial completion, but have a sustained performance and is a value added as the years or 3 years. So, this government has to follow accountability. Past the finish line through stages, gates don't come under operational metrics are met. So that means that each of the phases we are delivering outcomes. This outcome has to be met. So we have to focus on that. So for delivering the projects to assuring sustainable operational outcomes and value realizations, organizations needs to governance to manage value over time. That means that we're supposed to face more in the performance of the commission, not on the schedule based on the construction. Because one of the things is that organizations, they are putting success more on substantial completion, not on the outcome that is expected to. So the success of the project is the outcome, not the substantial completion.
That is a really, really important insight, Enrique. Is exactly that. Is putting the ice on the price, and the ice on the price is not delivering a scope silo, is delivering value, and not only that, sustaining. That's where the true project is gonna be tested. How long and how robust can this deliver and sustain value for the organization? Marco.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. When we talk about outcome assurance now, we're talking about sustained production, uptime, future OPEX requirements, and the kind of overall life cycle value. So how do we achieve that? I think there's a few things. One of them is adaptive governance and flexibility. So being able to change and adapt to changing conditions. We've had some geopolitical issues here in my part of the world recently, and organizations need to be able to adapt to events like that. And the incentives, which I think everybody else mentioned as well. I just like one specific example is, where if I can use the carrot and the stick analogy, we're quite good with the stick. Every EPC contract has warranty provisions, penalty clauses that if you don't deliver this or if it doesn't work 6 months from now or within the warranty period, you must come and repair it at your expense. But I've seen very few that actually have some kind of carrot where it's, if this asset delivers what it's supposed to deliver for a sustained period of time, if it has this uptime, then you will be rewarded with this. So I think we can still do a bit more to align the incentives with what we're actually looking for. And the other part, I think, is the continuity of people. So project teams tend to finish a project, move on to the next one. And with that, you lose all of that knowledge. I think it was something that Glennis was speaking about the commissioning is the commissioning school. When the project team moves on to the next project, they take all that with them. So having the continuity of people from project execution to operations, and then taking lessons and applying them to future projects, that's also where we can see some real benefits.
Oh, thank you so much, Marco. And you say something really, really valuable, which is the carrot and the stick analogy. If you only put sticks, you're just turning all your corporations or your ecosystem into a set of defensive entities, as opposed to be collaborative entities. The only way to turn them into collaborative entities is through that carrot, right? So to make sure that the same way you have provisions, right? So for penalties, you also have provisions for success, right? So and clear. I would say more, and based on what I've seen, the penalties clauses are very clear in the contracts. The ones that have ambiguity are the ones that are rewards. So they has to have the same level of clarity and safety. So, but no, thank you so much. That's great. And then I'll turn it over to you, Paul, for the last $1 million question, actually.
This next question is actually quite fascinating in some of the trending topics you hear in the media related to AI. Now, I don't think there's no question that AI is going to transform the industry. It's very fast paced and things are definitely changing, right? How the industry is going to change, I think we're learning and adapting as these new technologies emerge. I'm not sure that anyone fully has the answer, but yet we still need to be prepared because this powerful technology is coming. So I think this will be very fascinating to hear everyone's insights and thoughts on how the industry is going to need to adapt to some of these upcoming technologies. So the question fundamentally is, how can AI improve planning, forecasting, readiness, integration, and risk management without replacing core delivery and assurance capabilities? So let's start with yourself, Enrique. I'm very interested to hear everyone's thoughts on how AI is going to impact the industry and how each unique industry is adapting.
Yeah. So AI AI can strengthen the planning, forecasting, readiness assessment, operational integration, and risk management by giving you data, detecting anomalies that it acknowledge that are existing, but using where it's amplified, but not a replacement of the commissioning. So you can do checklists, pressure test, commissioning sequence. You can do forecasting, readiness, gas, but you cannot put it all in working concert as a I'm thinking of more in a plant wise. You are building a plant. So the commissioning you can do as a silos, not as a system approach. So saying that you cannot use AI to, how you say, you cannot use AI for taking decisions, only as a tool to give you an advanced sequencing and advanced knowledge that you have from previous previous experiences. So readiness, forecasting, schedule, punch list, training, that's the matter that AI can do, but you cannot use it as a tool to decision making, to go about abroad the spectrum of the project wise. That's what I mean.
You mentioned amplifier. AI is really going to be the big amplifier going forward, right? For companies that have strong core capabilities, they're going to be able to leverage these tools and accelerate their systems that work. For companies
Correct.
that maybe lack some of those core capabilities or have silos, then AI is going to expose those and probably amplify those weaknesses as well, right? You see that in a lot of industries where AI is kind of amplifying things that work, but also exposing things that don't, just at a much more rapid pace. So I like that term you mentioned on AI amplification.
Exactly. It should not be used as a substitute to commissioning discipline or operational judgment, accountability. It's just a tool. It's just a tool to give you amplified answer for data that is existing. Remember that that this is AI gather all these scenarios that are already data in, but in the plan is a new project, so you have to focus on more what is the outcome expected from that one, because it's unknown until you go and reach start doing the operational readiness.
Appreciate that, Enrique. Thank you very much. Let's hear from yourself, Marco. What are your thoughts on how AI is going to impact the industry?
So I use AI a lot.
Projects that you're working on.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Paul. Yeah, I use AI a lot. I use it in my personal life. I use it in my professional life. And something that I've noticed, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed it, but I noticed that when I ask the AI about something that I don't really know a whole lot about, I get a very professional, confident sounding answer. And I think, wow, this thing is a genius. But anytime I ask it about something that I actually know a lot about, I think, wow, this is sometimes just completely wrong. Sometimes it kind of misses the point. And I think it touches on something that Enrique said, which is, and yourself, which is that it's only as good as the data that it actually works on. So if it's trained on good data, it amplifies that, like you said, and it gives you good outcomes and good results. But if it's trained on data that hasn't been scrutinized or isn't good, which is, the entirety of the internet potentially, you can get some completely just outright wrong information, or at the very least, it can kind of miss the point. So like Enrique said, I don't think we can, at least in the near future, rely on it to really make important judgment calls or decisions. We have to keep that to ourselves, but we can absolutely use it for working with data. Something that it's excellent at is working with especially large amounts of data. So I think you no longer need to be an expert on pivot tables in Excel and spend hours making potentially charts for presentations. AI can do an excellent job of dealing with data, working with data, doing calculation type work, but and hopefully free us up for the decision making and the judgment calls.
I think that's key for sure, right? AI is definitely going to be a powerful tool, and I don't want to discount it. We need to be adapting and using these tools, but it's that core capability, that expertise, judgment to know what you're getting, whether you could rely on the answers and amplify the responses that you're getting. All right, yourself, Mauricio. Let's hear how you and Deloitte are addressing AI and using these powerful tools to help us on projects.
Perfect. So, Paul, I think AI can help you like a co-pilot. Okay, yeah, you can check your hypotheses, your premises, and with AI, I can insert my precedent network and ask if AI sees some problems, some risks, some issue, and give me some advice that I can check. I can insert my cost, my CBS or my WBS, and check one against the other with AI, give me advising what I can do. And a lot of other things. I can insert my schedule plan, my schedule, and check the risks. Okay, so we have a lot of potential use of AI, like Copilot. nowadays the AI is, I can see very useful generative document like schedule from the scratch. Okay, I insert some information in the ask for doing all the schedule of the project. AI, I tried a lot of times, but AI have a lot of problems doing that because and the other colleagues talked, doing a lot of premises that is not true. Okay, so I believe that the best way to use AI nowadays, because AI evolving a lot, is like a copilot asking for checking and develop some alternative plans.
And AI, even from a year ago, maybe wasn't what we were hoping and expecting it to be. Now it's becoming quite powerful. It's hard to even imagine in a year from now or 5 years from now how sophisticated these tools are going to be. I think we definitely need to be learning and adapting to see how we can use these on projects, because they are only going to get more powerful for sure. How about from yourself, Glennis? How is Australia and New Zealand adapting to this new AI world that we're finding ourselves upon?
Or as for others, I think it's not about replacing human commissioning engineers, it's about making us better. And it is moving so fast, as you say, that I'm really looking forward to be able to letting it deal with the admin, if you like, scanning drawings, asset lists, automatically generating testing documents to free us up to actually do some real engineering and some commissioning. Maybe scan designs and have some peer review so that we can get second opinions on designs, pick up design flaws. Maybe already have digital twins, so feeding real-time commissioning data into our models and simulating scenarios based on real plant data so that operators can practice their responses in the virtual world. And then maybe continuous optimization. I'm really looking forward to when AI can help us fine-tune chemical dosing, pump speeds in real time to keep the plants running in its sweet spot, the stuff that takes such a lot of time and effort to do manually. And also, we've all got our wee notebook, which is full of random useful data, rules of thumb, lessons learned. But what happens when we leave the project? That knowledge is built over decades and it lives with us. And with an aging workforce, that's happening more and more. So I'm hoping that we can use AI to ensure that the lessons learned during commissioning don't get lost when people leave. Maybe ensuring the knowledge we gain during project delivery actually protects and optimizes that asset for the next 20 years.
Definitely some opportunities to apply these technologies for sure. Now, I do see that we have some questions in the chat. Before I get to those, David, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on AI going forward and maybe how the industry should think about some of these technologies or maybe adapt as we move forward.
Yeah, Paul, that's a really fascinating topic. As a matter of fact, something that we have been progressively engaging and learning more. First of all, I concur to what the panel says. This is not a replacement. This will never be a replacement. It's an accelerator of knowledge. And I use AI. And Marco mentioned something really interesting. This is, every time that I ask something that I don't know, it gives me a really beautiful answer. But every time that I ask something that I know, it actually makes some inaccuracies, right? So, and that actually is a really big lead. So, number one, AI, even though it's really powerful, is not where it's going to be in the next few years. Yet, it is really powerful. Another item that I see, particularly with the comment from Glenn, is mentioned about the digital twin, something that we're really, really heavily starting to get involved, is the data, right? So, I mean, AI is as good as any software, as good as the data it receives, right? So, and that's where you can see the mistakes and the acceleration. So, AI, far from being a replacement, it is an integrator. It's going to help you to change this mindset. It's going to help you to accelerate your decision making process. It's going to help you to get faster to your next step, but will never be a replacement of what the next step will gonna be. If I can see already a big projects relying so much in AI, and essentially, compounding the error, right? So, which is nothing different that we have been seeing in any scientific method, right? So, error has a compound effect, and the same way that it can accelerate your decision making process, also accelerate the errors, right? So, and can lead us to, if you blindly trust in AI, it's going to lead you to disastrous consequences. Yet, in my particular case, from what I've used and what I've seen, AI is accelerating knowledge, but also being cautious of validating always the reliability of the data that AI is fed up. And no, my thoughts, generally speaking, in the AI is going to change. It's changing already the ecosystem. It's changing already the way corporations are operating. It's changing the way projects are starting to deliver. I have seen a tremendous exposure. I had the great privilege of being in Sao Paulo, particularly with in the in the PC Expo, and I saw a lot of great, tremendous insights of the great advancements that are being done in the region, right? So with Deloitte and all the partners, very pleased to see how technology is emerging in particular in that region. It's really strong, really robust. And as Mauricio mentioned as well, right? So AI is being an accelerator, but it's never, is also, we need to be very cautious of how we use it. So really pleased, as I mentioned, to see how we are all across the world using this technology to accelerate, to catalyze the evolution of the ecosystem.
Compounding success and compounding the error, right? AI is really the great amplifier, and for companies that are being leaders and have world class capabilities, they're going to excel, right? The ones that have some gaps in their capabilities, that's going to be exposed wide open for everyone to see as the crazy pace of change continues to increase, for sure. All right, we've got some really good questions here as well. So these are open to anybody that wants to add their thoughts. I'll put them up on the screen here, and interested to get everyone's insights. So first question here is the important point in commissioning projects that must be sure before starting. We have last updates to the document's full package, and maybe this is somewhat related to AI as well, right? The information that we're dealing with, the documents that we have, the accuracy of information, AI is going to help here as well. So interested in anyone's thoughts on this particular comment.
All right. So it's not only that you have the updated document as a OM manual, but in essence you have to have the latest as built, how this system is constructed. So you have to have the being able to identify any troubleshooting that needs to be addressed, and how to perform the lotto on those equipment. So this system should be integrated before you move forward to on the rest of the system for startup.
Yeah, and to supplement that is essentially it comes down to starting with the end in mind, right? So I mean, you can even the way you structure your package, you structure your information, right? So that is a really valid point. I mean, if you don't have that, and I've seen that across my career, if you don't see that clear, you're gonna be scrambling with unidentified last minute turnover packages and delivery packages where you're not going to have a team that is prepared, you're not going to have a team that is ready to receive it, let alone to operate it, right? So now you are into the improvisation mode, and that's one of the most disastrous
Mhm.
effects, right? So as soon as you start improvising, particularly when you are transitioning to live operations, you're pretty much playing the roulette,
Mhm.
not only with the budget, not only with the financial, but also let alone even worse, which with the safety of the project, right? So that's
Mhm. Yeah,
improvisation must be avoided at all costs.
yeah, yeah, and risk associated to it.
My team has a bit of a motto, we go slow to go fast. So what that means is that we make sure that we're ready before we move off, and we don't artificially speed up at the start to waste time at the end.
Excellent.
All right, some very good insights for sure. Next question is from Jav. Hi, Jav. Good to see you. AI question. Some are trying to use AI to replace the humans on projects, while others, like those I support, are shaping it to assist humans rather than replacing them. I think there's some great insight in that question in the companies or corporate approach to how they're using these tools to cut and trim, or actually to leverage these tools to exceed maybe in things that they couldn't even do before. So interested to hear everyone's thoughts on this one.
Yeah, funny enough, I've been reading some articles recently that a lot of the technology companies that have been replacing their coders with AI have realized that it's actually more expensive. They're spending more money in AI tokens than the salaries of those programmers that they had on payroll before. But I totally agree with Jav that it should be used to improve the productivity of professionals and knowledge workers, and take away kind of the drudgery of working with data, working with Excel spreadsheets, making PowerPoint slides, and free up more time for the important decision making, maybe the creative kind of knowledge work, the engineering.
I would add, is AI is a tool that give you faster response, or let's say that you're on the field and you need something fast, you can use the AI to give you that answer, but not as a process. How you achieve the outcome is something that you have to have the feeling, that you have to have your experience input in this, in not the AI is gonna just give you what you have to fulfill in order to do the check mark, pass or fail check mark.
It's interesting, if I may add something interesting here. So everybody is and I see this trend now, and especially with the emergence of AI. Everybody is the $1 million question, and it's always called, is the AI question. We're tending to forget, and this is in the entire ecosystem. We're tending to forget that it's a people problem, right? So we can have the most sophisticated tools, but we are facing a socio-technical problem. And there's a phrase that I always, is building on what Mauricio mentioned about the changing the mindset, and particularly with the culture, right? So this a quote that arguably was done by Peter Drucker. Nobody knows, but the famous quote, it says that culture eats strategy before breakfast, and that's true. I mean, it doesn't matter how much AI we're trying. As Marco mentioned, all of a sudden these corporations are replacing with boots and stuff the AI, and they are realizing that it is. I mean, these projects are complex networks of humans, and as a complex networks, they are subject to adaptation. They are subject to complexity of rearranging the systems. These are systems, and unless we embrace a change in mindset, unless we truly embrace, go to the basics and go back to the system thinking, we treat projects and treat assets as as complex adaptive systems. It does not matter how much AI, and I always fascinated by the power of the AI. Don't take me wrong, I'm pro, but we always need to remember, we can't forget that this is a socio-technical problem, right? So we can talk, I mean, we can have entire conversations and entire forums are about AI, but unless we actually treat this as a socio-technical problem, system thinking, we're going to fail. We're going to fail. I mean, it doesn't matter how framework it is. It is a human problem, and that's where the value of experience, it comes, right? So experience insights, experience consultancy. Unless we understand how we can merge that concept, we can put, you can put a beautiful plane outside, but if you don't have the right pilot, you're not going to even take off. We have more questions.
Next question. Everyone is interested in AI for sure. So AI systems can support in predicting issues during commissioning scenario as a simulation. And I think this aggregation of data and prediction element is certainly a powerful use of AI. Who has some thoughts on that one?
I think Glennis mentioned a lot about the digital twins, right? So this is a predictive models, right? So this is something that I've seen personally, is now with the emergence of digital twins, right? So I've seen fascinating, not only in the future. I was listening the other day to one of the conferences in the medical field. I try always to these knowledge roundtables. I try to listen not only from the project world, but also from other disciplines, and especially the other day I was listening in the medical field, this digital twin, right? So can actually even improve the way of treatment. So you essentially they were referring to a cancer patient, and they were not there yet, but in the future, the way I personally see it, and I agree with the doctors, say that you're gonna have, a person that is that requires, a particular cancer treatment, and you're gonna pretty much pull all the data and start playing, simulating with this digital twin, and eventually come up with the right, treatment that is going to save his life or at least prolong it, as opposed to be dependent on the pharmaceutical industry, all these trials, and that take years, right? So that's going to be an amplifier. We're not there yet, but I mean, it's just the same way it's going to happen with an asset, right? So a little bit simpler. It's still complex, but a little bit simpler. You're going to be able to simulate and create all these predictive systems, not only to simulate how this is going to start up, but also maintenance, right? So something important, right? So budgeting, maintenance, right? So spare parts, critical spares. So what is defined as a critical spare? What is not defined like that? So I think simulation is the third way to do science, and that's something that is emergence. We have in this normal scientific method, you have inductive or deductive analysis. Simulation has emerged as the third way to do science, right? So I think that's the important thing, and but always coming back to the people problem. I can't overemphasize that. Even though as a chairman of the technical committees pushing the technical portion, I will always emphasize that this is a human problem. No, this is the technical comes after. Anybody else has any insights?
One point here, the simulation for we have a good simulation, we have a good data. The base of good simulation is a good data about the project. So we need to have this base, the foundation, very, very good. And in the most of the projects, we don't have this reliable data that we can use to do a good simulation with AI. We need to infer a lot of things. We need to create some ways, and data is our big problem nowadays. If you have a good data about schedule, about cost, about the risks, premises, and put all together, of course, we can have a very, very good simulations with AI, putting in a digital twin. But how many projects really have a good digital twin? This is my question. Even BIM, we have a few projects that have a good BIM, a good modeling with all the information. So our biggest problem here is information, is data. So with data, we can do a lot of things. Okay.
Yeah, that reliability of data, and not only the reliability, the existence of reliable data, right? So that is a big problem, right? So and I think personally, with the emergence of AI, more than creating new data, AI is going to help organize and integrate that data, right? So for the future, I mean, AI will never be a crystal ball. AI will never be a predictive of the future. Yet, is definitely going to accelerate the organization of the existing data to make sure that we take the right one. Right, so it's exactly what you say, Mauricio. Is the big problem here is the data, especially with changing environments, right? So you can have two projects exactly the same thing executed by two different project managers, and you will have different results. It doesn't matter, with same budget, same scope, same timeline, and you will have two different results. So no, that's data is the key. uh, okay, so anybody else has any other insight before we go to the next question?
I think this next question is interesting too, because we talk about some of the opportunities that AI is going to present, but it's also going to create lots of challenges too, right? And here's a good one from Jav: is AI is just like human nature. AI is going to maybe try and cheat or manipulate, or external bad actors interfering with our systems here as well. So there's lots of opportunities, and I think lots of challenges ahead of us to deal with this new technology.
Yeah, this is, as Mauricio says, is how data it should be managed, because you can trust the AI, but even though you trust on the AI, you have to know at least what you're asking and what is the outcome you expected to. Because if not, you can be treated. You can have a sheet of unreliable data coming to you. Thanks.
Yeah, well, yeah, and everything can be manipulated by cyber attackers. I mean, as AI, everything evolves, right? So not only the good things, also the bad things are going to evolve. It's just a matter of, this. Here is the importance of the governance, right? So, and it's impossible to have in this, particular topic in artificial intelligence, a global governance system. Yet we can ensure global governance systems for commissioning, outcome assurance, and operational readiness, right? So that's going to be this governance is going to be a protective layer to a point of these cyber malwares or cyber attacks, right? So it's going to be the organization. If you have a robust, for example, I can think of, if you have a really robust operational readiness program, part of the operational readiness program is exactly that. What is your cyber protection, right? So high, and depending on the type of projects, right? So you're gonna have requirements of IT requirements that are going to protect you against these times. I mean, it would be very presumptuous to say that you're gonna be, you know, invulnerable to any that, but governance is the key to to ensure that we can mitigate as much as possible these malwares and cyber attackers.
And going back to the positive side of AI, is when it is used correctly, it definitely is a time saver, and does have a useful purpose for specific tasks. And I think that's what we need to be adapting to, is to leverage these tools and let them help us where they can, moving forward.
Correct.
Anybody have any thoughts on that one?
I think we're fascinating with the AI. That's one of the things that,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
are
and I think
fascinating, and I think the more we get, I think, and in these forums, one of the things that I learned is that, besides the tremendous knowledge that is still, is that because of the uncertainty that we have nowadays with the AI, people is trying to to get answers, right? To get to understand how the future is going to look like. Nobody knows. I mean, no matter how much we explore this project, we are pretty much observers of the problem from multiple angles, right? So
yeah.
we're not, nobody is capable. Nobody, no matter how big or how sophisticated or how global the organization is, nobody has so far been able to predict the future in that regard. So you can simulate, you can assign probabilities, you can predict, but I think this AI trend is the need, is the anxiety of the ecosystem to know what's going to happen next, right? So, and it's creating a lot of anxiety. It's creating a lot of you know uncertainty, and by all means, it's a lot of value being invested in this, a lot of value being left at the table if we don't grab and seize the opportunity on time.
Yeah. I think as a time saver for certain tasks, it's great. So just recently, we had, I think, around 850 isometric drawings that we needed to figure out the volume of those pipe spools. Normally, that would take somebody the good part of a week to build an Excel sheet and enter every single pipe. The AI took about 10 minutes to do it. We cross-checked. I think maybe we decided to cross-check about 5% just to make sure that it was kind of accurate, and that was it. That freed up an engineer for about a week to go and do real high-stakes engineering work rather than tallying up volumes from isometric drawings.
Excellent. We have any other more questions, Paul?
Let's take a quick look here.
I think we lost Glennis, and we really appreciate, first of all, thank you to Glennis. Unfortunately, I think we had some technical issues there, but no, great contribution from Glennis.
One last
she's
question.
back.
One last question here on again on AI. For me, during my job now, I'm not allowed to hire any engineers to or have any engineers write any report by using AI. So it sounds like there's limitations on what AI can be used for in this particular individual's projects. They can only use individual information. So that's a tricky one too, because there's a balance, right? If we need to be learning and adapting as these new tools are coming into the industry, but yet corporations may be hesitant because it is so new and fast changing how and where these tools should be used. So there's definitely a balance there on adaptation versus limitation. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, a lot of organization is facing this challenge. We have a lot of opportunities with AI, but nobody knows where the data that we send to AI will be stored. Okay, so if I send my data, my classified information for ChatGPT or Cloud, are they using my data to inform another people or not? The AI is learning with my data or not? So the organization is very careful about that, and because this sensitivity of data, so the evolution of the organization is not in the same pace of the evolution of AI. So a lot of people is using more for the for personal using that in the corporate using, okay, and of course the small companies and startups using a lot more the AI because they don't have these guardrails of using. Here in Deloitte, we work with big companies, huge companies, and we are facing this type of problem. We went to develop some application, but we have a lot of limitations because this sensitive of data.
Mauricio, you mentioned something really, really interesting. And goes back to the adoption of AI and how it's not the same thing. First of all, the evolution. So AI is evolving faster than organizations, and that's a key thing because as I mentioned, it's not the same thing trying to implement AI to a multi-billion-dollar corporation like an ExxonMobil or Petrobras, something, than trying to implement that to a small startup, right? So number one, the risk and rewards are different. Number two, the what is at stake is totally different. And of course, it's a cultural change, right? So now, for you to implement AI into a big corporations, it has to be a massive change of culture across the organization, and that's not trying to move a big organization towards that is really difficult because you have a lot of departments, multiple networks, sub networks inside the organization that need to advance. It is really our role, as you know, as knowledge creators, consultants, builders of this ecosystem, to hold the hands of these organizations and help them understand what are the benefits, right? So and walk with them this path, because as we mentioned, we concur here. It is really not, nobody knows the answer, but what we can do is navigate together, right? So this path, I think that's where the value comes, is not to abruptly implement, is just to navigate together this AI path that we all are facing. And culture, socio-technical, plays a key role here. So that's absolutely.
Yeah. Also, in on the AI, one of the things is that you get essential information, but always you have to tailor or adapt to your system. So whatever you're doing with AI, every information that you gather, you have to tailor anyway, temper to whatever is your outcome expected to happen.
This closing comment probably sums it up perfectly for any companies that are wondering how to navigate this complexity. Is really AI without governance is going to accelerate your mistakes. And that's why ICxA has outlined our outcome governance framework structure of our 3 core standards for commissioning, operational readiness, and outcome assurance. These are the standardized proven processes that we've written and released and are available to members to help companies govern through this complexity with strong systems and core capabilities to navigate this changing world. So before we conclude, David, is there any last comments you'd like to add or say to the group before we end today's discussion?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, first, I'm fascinated with every knowledge roundtable is a great and is fascinating, particularly all the insights that we learn from in all the questions from the commissioning school from Glennis to the changing mindset organization from Mauricio, all the items, the challenges that we have. In different regions, and from Marco, and the analogy of the carrot and the stick, and of course the incentives, and of course Enrique, just making sure that this is the transition is robust, integrating all from the mindset. So we have common things, and one of the values that I see here is that we're all facing the same problems, and the value of this is that we're solving it from multiple lenses, from multiple geographies, companies, and disciplines, right? So we actually, we have here multiple different corporations, different expertise, different areas, but we're trying to solve the same problem. And that's exactly how the knowledge is created, right? So by cross-pollinating, integrating multiple perspectives, and applying from one area to another one. I'm really pleased. I really, first of all, I'm really grateful for you guys for accepting the invitation and contributing to all these valuable insights. So, and I think it was a tremendous and successful a panel, really tremendous and successful insights that emerged from today's session. And yeah, so I would like to, maybe a quick roundtable from each of you guys. And yes, I think hand it over to Paul. Let's start with you, Glennis.
I really like to thank you for the opportunity. I think we have a lot of shared and common issues and perspectives, and it's good to get together and get a chance to talk about that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Marco.
Nothing else for me. Just thanks to everyone. It was very insightful, and I was happy to be a part of it. Thanks.
Excellent. Enrique.
Yeah. Everyone, you're welcome to stop by and ICxA.net. We know that we are struggling with commissioning. As I said to Paul years ago, when we meet, is that the need to happen an industrial commissioning structure is essential, because right now we have commissioning in other business market, but not for industry. Industry is a standalone, a whole different scenarios that you have, and they impact people, they impact other things that needs to have a governance in order to achieve the success.
Excellent. No, thank you so much, Mauricio. Final words.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dave, and thank you for my colleagues. It was a pleasure to be here with you. It's amazing talk about project management, commissioning, and outcome assurance. So it's very, very good to be here.
Thank you guys, and again, looking forward for the next roundtable. So, Paul, turn it over to you for final words.
Yeah, appreciate everyone's input. Lots of great value provided here. For anyone that's watching, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help at the Institute of Commissioning Assurance, ICxA.net. Email us at info@icxa.net. We're here to help individuals. We're here to help organizations. Anyone that is trying to navigate the complexity of projects. The processes are all outlined here and outlaid for you to leverage the knowledge of all the experts on the call here and help everyone have successful projects. So yeah, once again, appreciate everyone's inputs. Great discussion, great comments from people that joined live, and stay tuned. Watch for the next one. We'll be doing these regularly. Thanks for joining, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Are you ready to lead infrastructure projects with purpose and accountability? Join the movement at ICxA.net and unlock exclusive resources, from global standards to project delivery reform and career development certification programs. Visit ICxA.net for more information.